One of the things that I forgot to mention in the previous podcast was, what does philosophy lead to other than critical thinking skills? I think if you look at a lot of people in the legal profession or in politics, many of those people would have a background in philosophy. It's just a different way to think, being able to think on your toes, on your feet. And I think that's what lawyers and politicians really need to do. And when we get into later in Unit 1, where it's talking about logic and reason, these are going to give you tools that I think will extend to other courses, will help you argue better, will help you critically think better, will enable you to criticize someone else's arguments and find holes in their arguments and their points. So I think that empowers you. You might become a little annoying to your friends if you can constantly dispel their notions, but that could be a lot of fun too. I remember in second year university, two of my roommates took a philosophy practical reasoning course, and they were pretty argumentative to begin with. After that, I had no chance to win an argument, and sometimes I wear my emotion on my sleeve, and that tends to hurt me. And one of those roommates is now a lawyer, so I think he's put philosophy to good use. So if you look at the course outline, some of these terms you might not recognize. So this is just a little quick activity for you to define some terms. One of the nice things about this type of learning is that you can pause and rewind me or mute me at any time. Again, sometimes I talk about getting ready for that 2-hour, 3-hour lecture in first year university and how difficult it might be to take notes. Well, I'm hoping these kind of activities help you take that next step. So the first one is aesthetics, and simply put, it's the study of beauty and artistic taste. And I think we look at that later on. I forget what unit. I don't have the sheet here in front of me, but this just brings me to think about how Dove has really tried to redefine beauty. And I think about a sketch artist, and they had people describe themselves to a sketch artist, like a crime sketch artist, and then they had someone else describe the facial features of that first person, and how we tend to not see ourselves as attractive as other people see us. And I will show that to you at some point. Ethics, simply put, is what is morally correct. What is the morally right thing to do? Chances are, if you're going into business, education, engineering, science, you'll have to do some work with ethics. What is morally right? So in the social sciences, in sociology and psychology, ethics plays a major role because you simply can't research everything. You can't endanger someone while researching. You have to remain confidential. And now you have to have informed consent in social research. Ethics in advertising are also very, very interesting. Is it ethical to use fear of not having friends as a way to sell a product? Well, you better wear deodorant. You better use this mouthwash, or else you will smell, and that you might not have friends. Next time you watch TV, if the kids still watch TV, if it's not just all online, check and see how fear is sometimes used as a technique for advertising. In terms of motivating someone for education, do teachers use fear? And maybe I just did too. I said, you better pay attention to this podcast. You better take good notes because you might be stuck in a 2 or 3 hour lecture. Maybe I just did it there. Is that ethical? I don't know. And maybe university learning's evolved a lot, and professors are better at posting materials and giving notes and such. What is morally correct? Ethics. Epistemology, yes, be careful saying that, epistemology is the origin, nature, and limits of knowledge. It's another abstract idea. What is knowledge? And you'll read shortly talking about Socrates and how when he admits that he knows nothing, it opens him up to knowing more. And we'll talk about that later. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including such abstract concepts as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. It's a branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. Rhetoric, and in grade 11 English, you likely talked about rhetorical devices. So these are devices you can use in your writing, in your speech writing, in your public speaking that help you convince a point. Rhetoric, then, is the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. The art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Sometimes you use the rhetorical device of appealing to emotion. So you are doing a speech on the evils of globalization, and you read a story about a sweat factory, a sweatshop, I guess is what the real term is, and you read someone's firsthand account of how awful it is. Well, that's a rhetorical device. You've hooked your audience and appealing to their emotion. Appealing to authority is when you use something with a lot of credibility. Well, Harvard University study suggested this. Dr. Stephen Katz said this. And then there's other rhetorical devices like using alliteration, using simile, using analogy. Rhetoric. Study one of the politicians' speeches in the next election and see what rhetorical devices they use. Do they ever answer any questions directly, or are they able to dance around it? It's a skill, for sure. Now, philosophy of science looks at what modern science is, what the scientific method is, what qualifies as science, and ultimately what is the ultimate purpose of science. What modern science is, what the scientific method is, what qualifies as science, and what the ultimate purpose of science is. I see science and I think it makes me nervous. Biology, chemistry, physics, not some of my greater moments in my high school career. Political philosophy interests me greatly, and it explores government and the state of concepts of justice, rights, and regulations. And when I think political philosophy, I think of left-wing and right-wing ideologies, and what does traditionally left-wing believe versus right-wing. And in the Canadian federal elections, you can usually see that quite clearly of what the Conservatives say on the right versus what the NDP say on the left. And then the Liberals are kind of around the center. So I hope to tackle that more. That's something you likely covered in grade 10 civics. And then final, social philosophy. This is the relationship between people and political institutions and how social institutions influence social welfare, labor policies, and equity laws. So to me, social philosophy ties in perfectly with sociology and how our state governs our citizens and how those policies are driven and executed. Again, all those definitions are quite abstract, but I hope it just gives you a little bit of a taste of what's to come this semester.